Barry Loser and the Birthday Billions. From the squidgy pink brain of Jim Smith. Barry's birthday. Cock-a-doodle-doo, screeched my baby brother, Desmond Loser II, from his bedroom next to mine. It was 6:17 a.m. on Saturday morning, not that minded because it's my birthday! I cried, jumping out of bed and running downstairs doing an excitement blow-off on every step. Happy birthday, my darling little snooky flumps, cooed my mum, cuddling me into her bright red fluffy dressing gown. Thanks Mumsy Wumsy, smiled, wriggling out of her cuddle and staring at the ginormous pile of presents sitting on our kitchen table. In the middle of the pile sat a huge box covered in shiny silver paper. Fandabiculnus asterisk, cried, doing a bum wiggle dance until my pajama bottoms fell down. I knew exactly what was inside the box, a Schnozzinator 9000. I twizzled one of my eyeballs over to the present list I'd stuck on the fridge door 19 3/4 weeks before. It said 1. Another yellow hoodie. 2. No more boring questions about school. 3. A Schnozzinator 9000. My mom spotted me looking at the list. Ooh, that reminds me, she said. What did you do at school yesterday? Answer boring questions mostly, I said, giving myself a mini salute for being so funny. My mom did a face like a kangaroo eating a hedgehog and I dived into the presents, grabbing a squidgy jumperish feeling one. I was saving the Schnozzinator 9000 till last. Let me guess, a yellow hoodie, smiled, ripping it open. I'm famous for wearing yellow hoodies, in case you didn't know. Inside the wrapping paper was a white polo neck jumper. Thought it'd make a change from all your yellow hoodies, chuckled my dad. Plus it's just like the one Wolf Tizzler wears in his adverts, said my mum, and I did a birthday eye roll because I'm completely bored of hearing my mum go on about Wolf Tizzler the whole time. Who's Wolf Tizzler? Wolf Tizzler is the annoying child genius who invented the zoomy broom, a new kind of broom with microscopic wheels on the ends of its bristles. Wolf Tizzler's always on TV doing adverts about how the microscopic wheels are supposed to make the zoomy broom go faster when you're sweeping up. I think my mum thinks Wolf Tizzler would be the most perfect son ever. Thanks Mum, thanks Dad, I said, not that I really wanted a white polo neck jumper. Don't thank us, it's from Desmond, said my dad. Thanks Desmond, I said, even though knew there was no way my baby brother had gone into a Fico's supermarket and bought me a Wolf Tizzler polo neck jumper all on his own. I reached down and patted him on the head. Me got a biscuit, shouted Desmond, who was sitting on the floor with his bum squidged into a potty. He took a bite of the dinosaur-shaped biscuit he was holding. Me not want biscuit, he spluttered, spraying bits of biscuit all over the kitchen tiles. No probbles, said my mum, grabbing her zoomy broom and sweeping the crumbs into a dustpan. Thanks to its microscopic bristle wheel technology, the zoomy broom is up to 90% faster than the next fastest broom on the market, she smiled. Isn't that what that Rolf Twizzler kid says in his adverts? Said my dad. Ooh, he's such a clever boy, cooed my mum. I'm clever too, said, yanking my white polo neck over my head. Look, I can hardly get this jumper, and what with my ginormous brain more like your ginormous nose, chuckled my dad, even though his nose is way bigger than mine. More rubbish prezzies. After that Elle opened all my other presents apart from the huge shiny silver one with the Schnozzinator 9000 inside. This is what Elle got. 1. A bright pink piggy bank from my granny Herumpadunk. 2. Wolf Tizzler's autobiography. How to be a genius like me, from my mum. 3. One of those build-your-own circuit board kits from my dad. Brillicules, I said, pretending I liked them all even though, 1. I don't have any money to put in a piggy bank. 2. Who wants to read a boring old book about a loserish child genius who loves brooms? 3. There was no way I'd be wasting my time building a stupid circuit board when I had a Schnozzinator 9000 to play with. The Schnozzinator 9000. You're probably wondering what a Schnozzinator 9000 is by now. It's this cool new gaming helmet that makes you feel like you've been transported to Schnozzville. Schnozzville is where future Ratboy lives, by the way. Future Ratboy is my favorite TV show. It's all about this cool kid who's been zapped millions of years into the future and transformed into a half-boy, half-rat, half-TV. Oh. My. Coolness. I said, ripping open the huge shiny silver present. Inside was a white cardboard box with Schnozzinator 9000 foot written on it in futuristic letters. A Schnozzinator 9000. Thanks, Mummy Puss. Thanks, Daddy Puss, I said, lifting it out of the box and slotting it over my head. Nothing happened. Why in the uncoolness aren't Ellen Schnozzville? I said, my nose beginning to droop. You've got to charge it up first, Barry, chuckled my dad, pulling a mile-long cable out of the box and plugging it into the wall. Oh yeah, I said, and my mum did a face that looked like she thought Wolf Tisler probably would have worked that out. I lifted the Schnozzinator 9000 off my head and plugged it into the other end of the cable, and a little green triangle lit up on the side. Schnozzinator 9000 charging, bleeped a robot-y voice. Time for a birthday wee, I said, plunking the Schnozzinator 9000 down on the kitchen table and walking off all happily towards the toilet. After did my birthday wee. That's what I call a fantastic heel's birthday wee, I said, strolling out of the toilet. Now, let's see if my Schnozzinator 9000's charged up. I walked into the kitchen and froze. My Schnozzinator 9000 wasn't on the table where LD left it. Instead, there was a trail of white electric cable stretching from the plug socket through the archway into the living room. I followed the cable into the living room and froze again. Wah! I screamed. Desmond Loser II was sitting on the carpet in front of the telly, his bum squid-ged into my upside-down Schnozzinator 9000 like it was his potty. He was watching his favorite TV show, Clowny Wowney, and his face was very red. Desmond's face being very red is never a good thing. Operation Get Desmond's bum out of my Schnozzinator 9000 before he does a poo in it, I screamed, flying through the air like future Ratboy. I scooped Des out of the Schnozzinator 9000 and plunked him on the sofa, then twizzled round and stared down into my helmet. The good news was, he hadn't done a poo. The bad news was, he'd done a wee. The uncoolest wee ever. The worst thing about your little brother doing a wee into your brand new Schnozzinator 9000 before you've even managed to charge it up is that WE literally breaks a Schnozzinator 9000. Oh Barry, said my mum, cuddling me into her dressing gown for the second time that morning. I wriggled out of my mum's dressing gown and looked at the little green triangle on the side of the helmet. It flickered, turned red, then fizzled out. Can you fix it, Dad? Whimpered, feeling like a little light had fizzled out inside my belly. Not sure I can, Barry, said my dad, peering into the Schnozzinator 9000. His face peered back up at him, reflected in the pool of wee. Can we take it back to Fico's then? I said. We could swap it for one that hasn't got wee all in it. My dad looked at me the way I look at my best friend Bunky when I feel sorry for how tiny his brain is. I don't think Fico's takes back Schnozzinator 9000's that V been weed into, Barry, he said. I stood still for a trillisecond as tried to work out what to do. Desmond was sitting on the sofa watching the telly with a grin on his face. Lying on the carpet was his cuddly Clowny Wowney, also doing a grin. My brain cells started to boil like a kettle. I walked over to Clowny Wowney and trod on its stupid belly. Then I bent down, grabbed its head and gave it a tug. Here's a fact about cuddly Clowny Wowneys you might not know, their heads rip off much easier than you'd think. Wah! Screamed Desmond Loser II as dropped Clowny Wowney's head into my Schnozzinator 9000 full of wee and stomped upstairs to bed. The end. of chapter. The Great Birthday Telling Off. Barry Gary Larry Loser, what do you think you are doing? Said my mom, swinging my bedroom door open. I'm having a birthday nap, I said. Don't act clever with me, young man. I mean downstairs, said my mom, her eyebrows tilting into their angry positions. Ooh, now let me think, I said. I believe I was ripping Clowny Wowny's head off and dunking it in his owner's wee. Saying it out loud like that made me sound like a bit of a weirdo. I grabbed a pillow and squashed it over my head, wishing it was a Schnozzinator 9000 that'd zap me straight to Schnozzville. I know you're upset about your schnozy what's it called, but that doesn't mean you can go around breaking other people's things, shouted my mom. But he broke my thing first. I screamed. I don't care, said my mom, grabbing my arm and marching me down the stairs again. Desmond's a baby, he doesn't know what he's doing. You're a big boy, Barry, you should know better. It's my birthday. Don't have to know better, cried. Can we go to Fico's, Mum? Please, can we get me another Schnozzinator 9000? We most certainly cannot, I'm not made of money, you know, said my mom. Now apologize to your little brother. Sorry I ripped Clowny Wowny's head off, even though you eat into my Schnozzinator 9000, grumbled. Desmond, who'd completely forgotten about Clowny Wowny, remembered Clowny Wowny and started to scream again. And you'll be sewing that head back on as soon as it comes out of the washing machine, my mum said to me. Excuse me while I do a massive yawn. Ooh, what a Brillikiel's birthday I'm having, I said, flomping down on the sofa. My dad did one of his funny faces to try and make me laugh. Why don't you play with your other presents, he said, stuffing one of Desmond's nappies into my Schnozzinator 9000 to soak up the wee. Oh what, like my boring old Wolf Tizzler book, mumbled. My mum looked sad for a millisecond, and I felt a bit bad. You could at least have a look, she said. Wolf Tizzler's a very clever young man, you might learn something. Oh, I'm so sorry you're loserish, big-nosed son isn't all perfect like your darling Wolf Tizzler, cried. Don't be silly, Barry, you know you'll always be my number one Snooky Flumps. Cooed my mom. Anyway, it's not like your schnozy what's-it's working, so you may as well give it a go. She passed me the book and plodded off into the kitchen to make a cup of tea. Stupid rectangular cuboid, said, opening it up and starting to read. And to my surprise he medically gave me one of my brilliant and amaze-keel ideas. Yellow jumper. Happy birthkeels to you! Sang my best friends Bunky and Nancy working 2 hours, 18 minutes and 36 seconds later, when Elle opened the front door and saw them standing there. Did you get a Schnozzinator 9000? Grinned Bunky. Is it the keelest thing in the whole wide world, amen? Why aren't you wearing it right now? If I had a Schnozzinator 9000 LD, put it on and never take it off again for the rest of my life. I took a deep breath and opened my mouth. Desmond Loser II used it as a potty, so Elle ripped Clowny Wowny head off and dumped it in the wee, I said. I just sewed his head back on. Back to front. Nancy and Bunky gasped. I am so sorry, Barry, said Bunky, leaning forwards and giving me a hug, which was weird. I don't think Bunky's ever given me a hug before. Don't worry about it, I said, wriggling out of his weirdo hug. I'm completely over it. That's good, said Nancy, giving me a funny look because the last time something bad like that happened to me, it took about 9 years for me to recover. Nice polo neck, by the way, she smiled. You look like Wolf Tizzler. Bunky looked at my polo neck and scratched his bum. What are you doing with your yellow hoodie? He said. I'll put it back on later, said. I'm only wearing this because it's my birthday jumper. Can I wear it then? Said Bunky. Your yellow hoodie, I mean? I've always had the feeling Bunky secretly wanted my yellow hoodie, just from the way he looked at it. Now I knew LD been right all along. No. I said. Get your own yellow hoodie. I would if I could, said Bunky. But my mum keeps on buying these stupid stripy ones. He pointed down at his stripy jumper. It was true, LD never seen him wearing anything else. Tough luck, Stripey, I said. Nobody wears Barry Loserkeel's yellow hoodie apart from Barry Loserkeel, *. Bunky stomped his foot on the ground. My name isn't Stripey, he cried, as Nancy pointed at my book. What are you doing with that? She said. Bad news. It's my new Wolf Tisler book, I said, holding it up so they could read the title. I've just been reading it. You read a book? Said Bunky, screwing his face up like used wrapping paper. Well, the first chapter. I said. What in the Keelneys did you do that for? Said Bunky. I know, it's weird, I said. And what's even weirder is I'm actually quite enjoying it. Nancy rolled her eyes like a two-wheeled sellotape dispenser. Shock horror, she chuckled. Bunky, Nancy, LV got some bad news, said, completely out of the blue. Nancy's eyebrows tilted into their worried positions. What is it, Barry? Are you okay? Sorry, did say bad news? I meant good. I smiled. I was just trying to get your attention, it's one of Wolf Tisler's tricks. I held up the page in How to Be a Genius Like Me where Wolf Tisler talks about saying things like I've got some bad news to make people's ears prick up. So what's your news? Asked Nancy. I'm becoming an inventor, said, pulling at the neck of my polo neck. I don't know if you've ever worn a polo neck before, but it really clings to your neck. An inventor? What for? Said Bunky, already beginning to look bored. That's the thing with people like Bunky who've got tiny brains, they can't concentrate on things for more than 3 sentences. Let me fill you in while we take a stroll, I said, tucking my book under one arm and my bright pink piggy bank under the other. Birthday Barry. Cooey, Barry, cried my mum, running out of the house after us. Don't forget LV got your favorite dinner for tonight, fish fingers, chips and peas. I gave my mum a thumbs up, not wanting to tell her that hasn't been my favorite for about 3 years. Brillakeels! I shouted over my shoulder, just to keep her happy. Nice piggy bank, Barry. Laughed Bunky as we strolled up the street. It goes with your girl's phone, pulled my phone, which is pink and used to be my mum's, out of my pocket. Why does everyone think pink is for girls? I said. Some of the coolest things in the whole wide world are pink. Like what? Said Bunky. Bubble gum, strawberry milkshakes, the insides of eyelids? I said, running out of keel pink things ly quicker ly. Ooh, the insides of eyelids, they are so keel, laughed Bunky. I pressed a button on my phone. PLUVURRFFF, it rumbled, doing a blow-off right into his face. Pooey, sniggled Bunky, even though the noise hadn't smelled of anything. It was just this keel little app I'd downloaded that's got millions of different blow-off noises on it. I don't want to interrupt your important discussion about eyelids and blow-offs, but what exactly are we doing? Said Nancy. Yeah, Barry, said Bunky. Since when do you take strolls? It's something Wolf Tisler does, I said, tapping my book. It helps him think clearly. Ugh, Wolf Tisler. Sighed Bunky. My mum thinks he's the best thing since sliced bread. I chuckled to myself, wondering who invented sliced bread, then remembered LD forgotten to mention something important. Let's clear one thing up before we go any further, I said. Yeah, we know, smiled Nancy, nudging Bunky, and he pretended to fall off the curb into the road and down a drain. What? I said. Today's your birthday, which means your birthday, Barry, which means you can do whatever you like and we can't say anything about it, said Nancy. How did you know that? Grinned. Because you say it every birthday, laughed Bunky. I did a birthday sniggle and we all strolled along for about 7.5 footsteps. What I don't get, said Nancy, is why aren't you more upset about your Schnozenator 9000 being weed into? I smiled to myself all mysteriously, mostly because that's what Wolf Tisler says you should do on page 17 of his book. It makes people think you've got something interesting to say. The reason is this, I said, stopping still suddenly and shooting my hands up in the air. I'm gonna become a billionaire and buy myself a new one. A bird cheeped in a tree, sounding a bit like it was doing a TADA. Barry loser, a billionaire, laughed Bunky. How in the name of unkeelness is that ever gonna happen? Easy. I just have to come up with an invention like the Zoomy broom. I said. How hard can it be? Very, said Nancy. Put my hands on Nancy's shoulders and stared into her eyes, which is something Wolf Tisler says you should do to make people concentrate on what you're saying. Nancy, 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 I smiled. How long have we known each other? Too long, said Nancy. Exactly, said. And you still don't realize? I'm a child genius, Nancy, just like Wolf Tisler. Do you know how many brilliant and amaze-keel ideas LVE had? Bunky started counting on his fingers. He's right, Nancy. Barry's had a lot of brilliant and amaze-keel ideas. There's a difference between calling your ideas brilliant and amaze-keel and them actually being brilliant and amaze-keel, said Nancy. Bunky did his confused face, which is just his normal face. Look, we can all stand here wasting our time talking about whether I'm a child genius or not, I said, his genius note-a-ling at the agree that I am one and get on with making £1 billion. Nancy chuckled to herself. Come on then, birthday Barry, she said. I'm in. The neck of my polo neck really was clinging to my neck. The slug busters. Opened how to be a genius like me to page 12 and started reading out loud. The first job of being an inventor is to find a problem to solve, I said. Nancy took her glasses off and cleaned them on her jumper. We need a problem to solve. Wah! Slug. Hey, don't call me Wah Slug, said. Then I looked down at Nancy's shoe and saw a slug slithering across it like a slimy zombie eyebrow. There's another one, cried Bunky, pointing at another slug, sitting on a leaf that was sticking out of a tree next to my head. It's an invasion. I screamed, pretending to run off like Future Rat Boy in my favorite Future Rat Boy episode, Future Rat Boy and the Invasion of the Nom Noms. Nancy plucked the slug off her shoe and plopped it down in the front garden we were standing next to. The lawn was covered in millions of big fat slugs, chomping on the grass. I've heard about this, it's something to do with the unseasonably warm winter we just had, said Nancy, peering through her glasses at the lawn. The slugs didn't hibernate, they just kept eating and getting fatter and having more babies. How do you know all this stuff? Bunky, peeking into Nancy's earhole to get a look at her brain. The Mobden Gazette, said Nancy. Don't you read newspapers? Me and Bunky laughed. No, Nancy, I don't read newspapers, he said. Aloni, back to my ing and ting a billionaire, direction of Mobden High Street. We need to find a problem to solve. 2 old grannies were walking towards us at -7 millimeters per hour. Ooh, these slugs are a menace, Ermintrude, warbled the one on the right, who had moles dotted all over her face like squidgy brown full stops. Tell me about it, Gladys, said Ermintrude. She was bent over in half so that her face faced the floor, which must be made it easier for her to spot slugs. They're avaying a field day with me begonias. Ooh, me begonias, warbled Bunky, doing an impression of Ermintrude, and we all sniggled. Ooh, me begonias. I warbled as well, and Bunky and Nancy stopped sniggling. Oi, why aren't you laughing? I said, pulling at the neck of my polo neck again. Sorry, Barry, your voices just aren't as funny as Bunky's, said Nancy, and Bunky nodded, looking all pleased with himself. The old grannies waddled off round the corner and Nancy blinked. Not that she hadn't been blinking anyway. Hang on a millikeels, I think LVE got it, she said. Got what, slug-shuitis? Sniggled Bunky, putting his hand up for me to high-five, but I just ignored him. What is it, Nancy? I said, even though I really should have been in a mood with her for saying my voices weren't as funny as Bunky's. The slugs, if we could come up with an invention that got rid of all the slugs in everyone's gardens, we'd be billionaires. Slug pellets. I don't want to ruin your birthday party or anything, but you have heard of slug pellets, right? Said Bunky, and Nancy and me stopped doing the little dance we'd been doing. Arg! Slug pellets, cried, dropping to my knees. Why did someone have to invent slug pellets? Nancy smiled down at me, which was a funny thing to do seeing as her brilliant and amaze-keel idea had just been completely ruined. What's so funny? I said, getting up and dusting off my trucy puss. Oh, just that there aren't any slug pellets left in the whole of Mogden, grinned Nancy. No slug pellets? In the whole of Mogden? I said. They've all sold out, said Nancy. Sold out? I gasped. Oh my keelness, Barry, could you stop repeating everything Nancy says? Said Bunky. Stop repeating everything Nancy says? I said, and Bunky sniggled. It was on the front page of the Mogden Gazette, said Nancy. Bunky pretended to stroke an invisible beard. Well, I must read the Mogden Gazette more often, it sounds absolutely fascinating, he said, doing an old granddad voice. And that's when I heard a non-old granddad voice. Ooh la la, if E.T. isn't my little friend Barry Loser. It said, and looked around. Renard! I smiled, spotting my French friend Renard Dupont lying on a sun lounger in his front garden. At least I think it was his front garden. What crazy planies E.T. were up to Z's time, Barry? Chuckled Renard, walking up to us and leaning over his fence. It's my birthday! I said, high-fiving Renard. I'm gonna become a billionaire and buy a Schnozenator 9000, * Bunky looked at my hand and stomped his foot. Hey, you just ignored my high five, he said. Happy birthday, Barry, said Renard, ruffling my hair. And how are you planning to make all Z's money? I pointed behind him at his lawn, which was crawling with slugs just like the garden before. By inventing something that gets rid of those. Just then, Renard's front door opened. Anna Mimi walk at Mama, at Renard. Bonjour, Madame Dupont. I said, showing off that knew how to say hello in French. Allo, Barry, said Madame Dupont, and I introduced her to Bunky and Nancy. Bunky, said Madame Dupont, kissing him on both cheeks, which is how French people shake hands. Zzz's an unusual name, non? Funny you should say that, Madame Dupont, I smiled, because happen to know for a fact that Bunky isn't Bunky's real name, it's just his nickname. Bunky gave me a nudge. Did you know we were inventors, Madame Dupont? He said, completely changing the subject, because he hates people knowing his real name. Renard pointed at the slugs. They are getting rid of Z slugs for money, Mama. He grinned. Ooh la la. ZZZ answer to my prayers, cried Madame Dupont. I've been down to Fico's, but they had none of Z pellets left. That's why LV invented the Slug Zapper 5000, said, making up what I was saying on the spot. Nancy leaned over to me and whispered. What in the name of keelness is the slug zapper 5000? Just go with it, whispered, remembering what it said on page 15 of Wolf Tisler's book. Madame Dupont pushed her glasses onto her forehead and looked me in the eyes. How much is slug zapper thingy going to cost me? She said. IP per slug, barked Bunky before I could even open my mouth. 1p per slug. ET's undeal, said Madame Dupont, walking back into her house. Just do not hurt my precious snails. IP per slug, cried, turning round to Bunky. Let Birthday Berry do the talking next time, Bunky. Bunky ignored me and turned to Renew. What your mum talking, sad. Renard bent down, scrabbled around in the grass and popped back up holding a snail between two of his French fingers. Yum yum, he said. In France we are eating snails. Yum yum, said Bunky. Are you completely crazy? Absolutely non, Bunky, said Renard. They snail is undelicious thing. He rubbed his tummy, plopping the snail back on the ground. I watched the snail slither underneath a leaf and thought back to when I had a pet snail once called Snailypuss. But that's another story. So, the slug zapper 5000 Barry, said Nancy, and I shrugged. It got us the job, didn't it? I smiled, leaning against a tree. Now all we have to do is come up with a brilliant and amaze-keel invention that'll get rid of all these slugs. How about if we just pick them up and put them in a box, said Bunky, and Dee leaned against the tree and whipped Wolf Tisler's book out from under my arm, flipping it open to page 29. Sometimes the best invention is the most obvious, I read out loud. What, so your invention is your hand? Said Nancy, looking down at my birthday hand like it was just an ordinary non-buy one. I future-rap darted my eyes around Renard's garden and spotted a scratched-up old ice cream tub with a stack of those sticks you write the name of plants on inside it. Let's just see how many we can collect, I said, grabbing the tub and bending over to start making some money. A nice sit-down. It was 47 minutes and 15 seconds later and the ice cream tub was full. That's the garden cleared. How many slugs have we got? Said Bunky, and I passed the tub to Nancy, who everyone knows is the fastest at counting slugs. 178, she said 179 seconds later, which is actually pretty slow for her. Wowzers, we're rich, grinned Bunky. Whoop-de-poo-poos, £1.78, I said, doing my sarcastic voice. Not exactly gonna buy me a Schnauzinator 9000, is it? Let us take a stroll, said Renard, who'd been lying on his sun lounger for the most of the slug-picking up bit, reading Wolf Tisler's book. Good idea, Renard, I said, and we all strolled to Mogden High Street, where we stopped strolling and looked around for somewhere to have a nice sit-down. Cafe, said Bunky, pointing to Cafe, which is his favorite place to have a nice sit-down at the moment, mostly because the waiter who works there used to babysit him when he was a little kittywinkle. Cafe. Bunky, my brother, grinned Herman the waiter as we walked through the door of Cafe. It was dark inside and full of grown-ups sitting in front of their laptops drinking coffees. Bunky walked up to Herman and gave him a high five, then looked back at me to see if was jealous. A francle for everyone. We're rich, Herman, he said. We're not rich yet, Bunky, said Nancy, pointing at my bright pink piggy bank with the £1.78 Madame Dupont had given us inside it. Don't worry. They're on the house, said Herman. Me and the Bunkmeister go way back. Herman disappeared behind the bar and we sat down at a little table next to a man with a ginormous beard and a completely bald head. PSSTT, Barry, whispered Renard. Z's man, looks like is EADE's on upside down, non? I glanced over at the man and did a sniggle, and the man tooted and carried on tapping away on his laptop. So now what, Mr. Genius? Said Nancy, as Herman walked over with a tray of frankles. We've got F1.78 and a tub full of slugs. She pointed at the ice cream tub, which I'd plumped down on the table. The lid was on and inside squirmed 178 juicy fat slugs. Well, we can't carry on collecting slugs, I said. I mean, what are we supposed to do with these? Maybe Renard could eat them, said Bunky, and Renard shook his head. Do not talk crazy, Bunky, he said. I am only eating these snails. And that was when I noticed a fan-like heel-shaped head turning round in the darkness at the back of the coffee shop. Frankelchino. Is that? I said. It isn't, is it? It can't be. The one and only, burped Darren Darrenofsky, the annoying little Frankel slurper from my class at school. I don't know why I was so surprised to see him, actually. He's in there all the time. Nice piggy bank, loser, same color as my mum's favorite lipstick, he cackled. I pulled my phone out of my pocket, pressed a button, and it did a big sloppy blow-off right in the direction of his nostrils. Darren pretended to ignore the blow-off. He was sitting at a table by himself with an empty chair in front of him. Take a seat, he said, pointing to the chair, and he picked up a tiny coffee cup and took a sip. Are you drinking coffee? Gasped. I was gasping because my mum never lets me drink coffee, even though her and my dad drink about 900 cups a day. Franklexino, said Darren, holding up the little cup. Can I buy you one? Why would want to have a Franklexino with you? I said, remembering all the times he'd been horrible to me at school. My eyes were getting used to the dark, and future rat boy zoomed them in on a big book that was sitting on Darren's table. How to be a genius like me, said the words on its spine. You're reading Wolf Tisler's book too? Cried, pulling at my polo neck. I was beginning to regret putting the polo neck on, what with all the neck pulling was having to do. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not, said Darren, doing a blow-off into his chair and pointing at my tub full of slugs. I see you've got a problem. What if I have? I said. Maybe old Dotsa can help you with it, that's what, snarfled Darren. Okay Dotsa, we're listening, said Bunky, completely butting into my business meeting with Darren, and I stomped on his foot under the table. Okay Dotsa, I'm listening, I said, as Darren pulled a toothpick out of a little pot on the table and stuck tea between his teeth. Nancy gasped. You're not going to toothpick them all to death, are you? She said. Relax, smiled Darren. That's not my style. So what is your style then, Bogienos? Said Nancy, and Darren stopped smiling and checked he didn't have any bogies hanging out of his nostrils. How much did you get for those slime sticks? He said, nodding at the tub of slugs. IP each, grinned Bunky, slurping on his can of Frankel and stomped on his foot again. Shush, Bunky. You're ruining my deal. I whispered, and twizzled my head round to face Darren's, lop each. Said, my left eye twitching. My left eye always twitches when lie. I'll give you 2p, smiled Darren. 2p for the whole tub? What are you, completely crazy? Spluttered Bunky. 1 finky means 2p per slug, Bunky, said Renard, and Bunky did a face like even he thought his brain might be a bit tiny. SP, I said. And that's my final offer. 2p, smiled Darren, and stomped my foot, this time not on Bunky's. I looked at Nancy. It's double the money, she shrugged. What you gonna do with them, Darrenofsky? I said, stroking the tub's lid and thinking of my old pal Snailipus. Don't want any violence. Trust me, loser, grinned Darren, stuffing his hand into his pocket and pulling out a fistful of dirty old 2ps. Lee, make sure they go to a loving home. Well, in that case, I said, you've got yourself a deal. Enter Sharonella. Darren waddled out carrying the tub of slugs and rattled my piggy bank, which now had £5 and 34 pence inside. Still nowhere near enough for a Schinozynator 9000, grumbled. What's that about you having a big schnoz, birthday boy? Said a screechy voice, and looked up to see Sharonella from my class walking through the front door of Cafe. Come here, you big loser, she cackled, giving me a great big squelchy smacker on the nose. Erg, get off me, cried, grabbing a napkin from the dispenser on the table and wiping my birthday nose dry. Bunky gave me a look that looked like he was checking if he could tell her what we were doing, and I nodded. Guess what, Shotzo, we're inventors, he said. And we're gonna be billionaires too. Oh God, not more Wolf Tizzler wannabes, moaned Sharonella, waving to Herman. Excuse me honey, can I get a Frankel over here? Not want TOBS, I said, tapping my piggy bank. RBS. We've just gotta come up with an invention. Nancy rolled up her sleeves and grabbed a napkin from the dispenser. She pulled a pen out of her pocket and tapped it against her teeth. Let's brainstorm, she said. Brainstorm? Said Renard. What sees terrible weather inside of your brain, Nancy? Nancy chuckled. A brainstorm is when you come up with loads of ideas all in one go, she explained. So we can find an invention that'll make us billionaires, grinned Bunky. Herman handed Sharonella her Frankel and I stood up, which is what I do when I want to get the keelness out of somewhere. Let's brainstorm, losers, I said, heading for the door. Really bad brainstorm. I staring up at the clouds as we strolled down Mogden High Street. Sharonella, slurping on her Frankel. Hummed Nancy. Hey, V got it, said Bunky, clicking his fingers, and we all stopped. Nope, it's gone. I opened How to Be a Genius Like Me to page 38 and started reading out loud. Often the solution is right in front of your eyes. Bunky stared straight ahead. All I can see is air, he said. And I can't even see it. It's useless. Let's just give up and be poor. Don't be a loser, Bunky, I said, at the exact same millisecond my nose bonked into something lampposty. OF, blurted, rubbing my nose. Who put that lamp post there? A fluffy little black dog trotted up and cocked his leg, doing a wee against the lamp-post's base, and the smell wafted up my nostrils. Pooey! I cried. That's the third time I've smelled someone's wee today, and only one of those someones was me. The door of the sunglasses shop we were standing outside of swung open and the owner stepped out. Shoo, you little mutt, shouted the man, who was wearing bright green triangle-shaped sunglasses. Blooming dogs always weeing up my lamppost, he grumbled, reversing back into his shop. Looked down at the wee-soaked lamppost, then up through the window at the grumpy shopkeeper. Then I thought back to my dad earlier that morning, stuffing one of Desmond's nappies into my Schnozzinator 9000. Oh my unkeelness, cried, giving myself a back-to-front salute. I think LVE cracked it. Lamp-post nappies. Lamp-post nappies, said Nancy once I'd explained my invention to them all, which was this. Inside-out nappies taped round the base of lampposts to soak up dog wee. Nancy puked her laser as Heringo walked back in the direction of her house. Where are you going? I cried, running after her and doing my Wolf Tizzler shoulder grab thing. Nancy, how long have we known each other? I said, staring into her eyes. Remember, this is Birthday Berry's day. Look, Birthday Berry, she said, staring back at me. I'm all up for helping you get a new Schnozzinator 9000, but if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it properly. Meaning? Said. Meaning we have to come up with an invention that's got a chance of actually making us some money, she cried. I turned round to face the rest of my birthday gang. She is correct, my little friend, said Renard. Z's lamp-post nappy idea is really, really bad. Okay. I said, doing a birthday sigh. Let's go back to the drawing board. Back to the drawing board. Which way's this drawing board thingy then? Said Bunky, looking left and right. It's just a phrase, Bunky, I said as we started to stroll. Now, who's got an idea? Ooh, me, said Sharonella, waggling her hand in the air. Fake leaves. Fake leaves, said Renard. Fake leaves, grinned Sharonella. Like when it's winter and all the leaves on your trees have fallen off, you could buy fake leaves to stick on the twigs. Next, sighed Nancy as we turned a corner and I almost bumped my birthday nose into another lamp post. This lamp post had one of those lost dog posters stuck on it, with a faded photo of a fluffy white dog called Fred in the middle. Hey, isn't that the dog that just went all over the grumpy sunglasses man's lamp post? Said Bunky, pointing at the photo. Spoiler alert, that dog was black, said, peeking into Bunky's ear hole and seeing right out the other side. He clicked his fingers. I've got it, toe socks. Yerf, this is useless, cried, flipping one tray book and reading out one of Invent Something That You'd Want to Buy Yourself. I peered into my brain, trying to see if there was anything I needed. Apart from the Schnozzinator 9000, my life was pretty keel. I had a nice enough mom and dad, and my baby brother Des wasn't that bad as long as Elle ignored him. What else do I want? I wondered out loud, and I remembered the present list I'd stuck on the fridge door 19 3/4 weeks before. Oh my unkeelness, cried. I want number 2. Beloy poo. Hey everybody, Birthday Berry needs a pod, cried Bunky in his stupid granny voice, and they all did a sniggle. That's not what I meant. I said. There's a toilet in Fico's up the road, said Bunky, grabbing my arm. Hurry Birthday Berry, I'll get you there before you do your number 2. I wriggled out of Bunky's grip and prepared to do one of my funniest voices ever. Relax Bunky baby, I don't need a poo. I said, sort of mixing future Rat Boy's voice in with one of those old grannies from earlier. I am sorry Birthday Berry, but Z's voice you do, ET's not funny in Z's slightest, said Renard. I pulled at the neck of my polo neck and started to explain about my present list and how number 2 on it was no more boring questions about school. Let me get this straight, said Nancy once LD finished. Your invention would be some kind of gadget that can answer boring old mom and dad questions so the kids don't have to? I nodded, thinking how I actually did kind of need a poo all of a sudden, probably because Bunky had just mentioned it. That's not bad, said Nancy, and everyone else nodded. See, told you I was a child genius. I said, waddling towards the Fico's supermarket at the end of the road, blow-off seeping out of my bum. Stupid blow-off app must be broken. I said, blaming them on my phone. How's it gonna work though, Bazzy? Said Sharonella as the doors to Fico's slid open and we headed towards the toilets at the back. It's not exactly like you can just magic up some machine what answers any old question, is it? We were walking down to the Schnollinator 9000 shelves, thinking how LD probably be back in here in about 2 days' time, buying a brand new one with my billions of pounds. Last few left. Shouted a sign hanging above the last 3 helmets. Factory completely sold out. Gah! We've got to hurry, screeched, waddle zooming towards the toilet to do my birthday poo. Lucerish idea. Ease sat better, Barry, said Renard as I walked back out of the toilet. Much better thanks, Renard, I said, holding my birthday hand up for a high five, but he just shook his head. Sharonella stomped on my foot to get my attention. As I was saying, how's this invention of yours gonna work? Good question, Shotza said, letting her off the foot stomp seeing as I was in a hurry what with all the Schnozzinator 9000s almost being sold out. It just so happens I had one of my brilliant and amaze-keel ideas when was sitting on the loo. I smiled. That's where I get all my best ideas, grinned Bunky, giving himself a mini salute. 2 words, I said, and the whole gang stared at me, waiting to hear what they were. Highbrow. Highbrow, said Nancy, saying the 2 words Dee just said. Isn't that thing Future Rat Boy puts on his forehead in Future Rat Boy and the Annoyingness of the Really Annoying Neighbor? Exactly, Nancy. Well done, I said, doing my hands on her shoulders thing, and she stomped on my birthday foot. The highbrow is this cute little extra eyebrow that Future Rat Boy sticks onto his forehead in the episode where he's got an annoying new neighbor who keeps asking really boring questions. Instead of Future Rat Boy having to keep on answering the questions, the highbrow does it for him. I pulled my pink phone out and typed in the website for Future Rat Boy, then clicked on the page where it explains about all his cute little gadgets. The highbrow consists of a simple circuit board, a fake eyebrow and some glue to attach it to the user's forehead. Read out loud. And where are we gonna get all that stuff? Said Bunky. Follow me, I said, walking towards the women's beauty aisle. Down the women's beauty aisle. Ow, easy it that you know where these things are, Barry, said Renard as I reached up and grabbed a packet of stick-on fake eyebrows off the shelf. My granny buys them, said, walking towards the checkout. She burned her real ones off putting her face too close to an electric fire when she was a kid. That's what happens when you haven't got a TV, said Bunky, all seriously. I stepped up to the checkout. That'll be £3.49 please love, said the lady behind the counter, whose name tag said Delia. Jangled my piggy bank upside down until £3.49 chinked into my hand. That leaves £1.85, said Nancy. Poof, how are we gonna afford a whole circuit board with that, said Bunky, and I twirled around. Don't you worry about that, Bunky baby. I got one of those build-your-own circuit board kits for my birthday, I said, handing the £3.49 to Delia. Frozen goods, I mean bads. Stop! Cried Nancy, and we all froze like fish fingers on a frozen goods aisle. What easy tea, Nancy, said Renard, his mouth moving while the rest of him stayed still. It's this stupid highbrow invention, said Nancy. I don't want to ruin it for everyone, but it's just not gonna work, held up the bag of stick-on eyebrows and waggled them in her face. Hello? I said. Barry, that Future Rat Boy website's just for fun. You can't actually make a real-life highbrow by attaching some stupid little circuit board to a stick-on eyebrow. I looked round at the rest of the gang as they thought about what Nancy had said. Nancy's right, Baza, said Sharonella, and they all nodded, Delia included. Oh, what a surprise! I said, handing the eyebrows back to Delia, and she passed me my €3.49. Nancy thinks my birthday idea is rubbish. I don't think the idea's rubbish, said Nancy. Just the invention. You need something more realistic. Realistic my bum, said, pulling my phone out and blowing it off in her face. That's not very nice, Barry, said Delia, calling me by my name even though we'd only just met and I wasn't wearing a name tag. Say sorry to Nancy, sorry, Nancy, I said, pulling at the neck of my polo neck. But Nancy just stared at my phone and smiled. Nancy's idea. What's so funny, Nancy? Said Delia, who was beginning to get on my nerves. Barry's phone, said Nancy, clicking her fingers. Why didn't I think of it before? Bunky looked at me and itched his bum. What's she talking about, Baza? He said. Yeah, Nance, what are you talking about? Asked. Nancy pointed at my phone. How much did you pay for that blowing off app thing? She said. 50p, said. No, £1. I added, remembering how LD paid extra for the super sloppy a 3-minute long blow-off that was worth every penny LD begged my mum to give me for it. You see, mobile phones are where all the money is these days, said Nancy. What if we turn Barry's idea into an app? Bunky scratched his nose with the same finger he just scratched his bum with. How do you make an app out of a fake eyebrow? He said. Nancy rolled her eyeballs. No. I mean an app that answers all the boring questions mums and dads ask about your day at school, she smiled. What, like Boz's blow-off thingy except with words instead of blow-offs? Said Sharonella. Flurf. Exactly, Shaz, said Nancy. Barry, you're good at coming up with horrible little things to say. All we need is a few of those and Bunky could do the voices for them, said Nancy. Yeah, Bunky's well good at voices, giggled Sharonella, and Renard did a snortle. Z's could be a real, you say, money spinner, non, he grinned. Pulled at the neck of my polo neck and wondered if it was getting hot in Fico's or if it was just me. Whoa, let's just calm down for a millisecond, I said. If anyone's doing the voices for this thing, it's me. Sharonella looked at Nancy, who looked at Renard, who looked at Bunky, who looked at Delia, who looked at me. I really do think Bunky's the person for the job, Barry, she said. Okay, I sighed, seeing as we were running out of time to buy a Shinozynator 9000. But birthday Barry's in charge. The parent shutter-upper 7 trillion. Right. First things first. We need a name for this app, I said, clapping my hands together so everyone would look at me. I nicked that trick off page 33 of Wolf Tisler's book, by the way. How about the Bunky-nator 9 billion, grinned Bunky. I gave Bunky that tiny brain look was talking about earlier. It's got to explain what the app actually does, said Nancy. The parent shutter-upper yar, said Sharonella, and looked at everyone's face apart from Delia's. I like Z's, said Renard. Me too, grinned Bunky. It's not bad, mumbled Nancy. Don't know, it needs a little something extra, I said. How about the parent shutter-upper yar 7 trillion, said Delia. Delia's cracked it, I cried, partly because Delia had cracked it, but also because I just wanted to get the unkeelness out of Fico's. Naughty Bunky. Let's go back to my house, I said, heading towards the exit. We can record Bunky's voices in my room. Whoa, cried Bunky, copying what ID said. 3 minutes the arrows of a hat, Gar's vocas at the drop of a hat, Barry. You avenue dropped your at, Bunky, said Renard, looking around on the floor. But I didn't see an at on your EAD. Bunky just ignored him. I haven't even had lunch yet, he warbled, starving. Bunky peered at the rack of chocolate bars next to Delia's checkout and grabbed 2, 1 for each of his brain cells. Take these please, Delia, he said. Barry'll pay. Oh, he will he? I said, reminding myself of my dad. Nancy gave me a nudge. Just buy him the chocolate bars, Barry, she said, reminding me of my mum. Well, don't eat them all at once then, I said, jangling hashtag 1.29 out of my piggy bank and handing it over to Delia, because that's how much the 2 bars came to. The worst walk home ever. Come on then, Baza, said Sharonella as we walked back to my house, Bunky eating both of his chocolate bars at once. You gonna come up with some of your horrible little sayings for this app thingy or what? Nancy scratched her head. They've got to be answers to the most common questions mums and dads ask about school, she said. Like, what did you do at school today, for example? My mum always asks me that, groaned Bunky. What did you do at school today, Barry? Said Nancy, trying to get me to come up with one of my brilliant and amazekiel answers. Answer boring questions? I said, saying what ID said to my mum earlier that morning, and everyone sniggled. That's not bad, actually, smiled Nancy. Now Bunky, you say what Barry said, but in one of your funny voices. Gotcha, grinned Bunky, spluttering bits of chocolate all over the pavement. What did you do at school today, Bunky? Said Nancy. Dancer during Destians, said Bunky in his blocked-up-nose voice, and Nancy, Sharonella and Renard all cracked up. Oh my days Bunky, you make me laugh, cackled Sharonella, zigzagging all over the pavement and bumping into me by accident. I bumped back into Sharonella accidentally on purpose. D'excuse me, that I was the one who came up with dat. I said in my blocked-up-nose voice. Nobody cracked up. Okay, moving on, said Nancy. Barry, how was maths today? I carried on walking, pretending hadn't heard her. There was no way I was going to answer her stupid questions if nobody was going to crack up at my hysterical birthday voices. Come on, birthday Barry, said Nancy. How was maths? Yonsville times rubbish, divided by unkeelness, I said. Barry is unnatural at Z's, sniggled Renard. I've gotta hand it to you Baza, said Sharonella, that ain't half bad. Nancy looked at Bunky and raised her eyebrows. Maybe in your granny voice? She said. Ooh, Yonsville times rubbish, dear. Divided by unkeelness, warbled Bunky. Ooh la la, cried Renard, leaning on Sharonella to keep himself from falling over. Z's voices, they are killing me, Bunky. Ooh la la, my name is Renard and I love Bunky. I said in my French voice, and I pulled at the neck of my polo neck to get a bit of air down into my jumper. What's that supposed to be Baza, Welsh or something? Giggled Sharonella, and Renard started cracking up again. All right, we've got 2 answers to boring questions. I reckon one more and we can start recording, said Nancy. How about, what did you have for lunch? Food, droned Bunky in the voice he does when he's pretending to be someone really boring. Hiya, cried Sharonella, her legs giving way, and she collapsed to the ground. Hang on a millikeels, said. I thought Birthday Barry wrote the lines. I peered down at Sharonella, then up at Renard, who was wiping tears away from his eyes. Nancy had taken her glasses off and was leaning against a lamp post, shaking with laughter. Oh forget it, let's just get this app up for sale so I can buy my Schnauzinator 9000, I said, turning the corner onto my road. The sooner I zap myself to Schnauzville the better. Back at the loser residence. Hello Barry's friends, said my dad, opening the front door and giving me a birthday hair ruffle. Bonjour. It is un pleasure to meet you, Monsieur Lozère. My name is Renard Dupont, said Renard, kissing my dad on both cheeks. Yes, very nice to meet you Bernard, said my dad, backing away into the living room. Ooh, what a charming young man, cooed my mum, carrying a basket of washing into the kitchen, and Renard kissed her on the cheeks too. Oh, so I'm number 3 on your list of favorite sons now am I? I said. Wolf Tisler, Renard Dupont, then rubbish old Barry the loser. My mum gave Nancy a look that said, typical Barry, and Nancy gave my mum the same look back. I saw those looks, I said. Birthday Barry sees everything. Just then Desmond waddled into the hallway holding Clowny Wowney with his head sewed on back to front. Me love you, boy, he beamed, but I just ignored him and started stomping upstairs. Sharonella turned to my mum. Oi, guess what we're up to, Madam Loser. Come on, Shotza, boomed, already halfway up the stairs. Ooh, I don't know, Sharon, said my mum, stuffing her giant red dressing gown into the washing machine. Bunky's doing his funny voices for an app thingy we're gonna sell for billions of pounds, said Sharonella, and my mum smiled. That sounds like fun, she said. Bunky's ever so funny with his voices. I leaned over the banister and opened my mouth extra wide. "Why don't you do your impression of my mum?" Bunky shouted, and Bunky's face went all red like my mum's dressing gown. "Ha ha, Barry's only joking," said Bunky, and he bounded up the stairs followed by Nancy, Sharonella, and Renard. "I've got Barry's favorite tonight, fish fingers, chips and peas," yelled my mum after them. "You're welcome to join us." "That's not my favorite anymore," I grumbled to myself, propping my phone up on my homework desk and opening the microphone app. Bunky. Or should I say? Bunky sat down on my homework chair and rolled his shoulders a few times. He cleared his throat and combed his hand through his hair. "And action," I said, pressing record on my phone. Bunky took a deep breath. Then let it out again. "What in the unkeelness are you doing?" whispered. "We're running out of time, Bunky. Fico's has only got a few more Schnauzinator 9000s left, and the factory's completely sold out." Bunky leaned forward and pressed pause. "Don't pressure me, Barry. Don't need this pressure." "Pressure?" I laughed. "What pressure?" "Just your stupid voices." Sharonella nudged Renard. "Look, Rennie, they're having one of their lovers' tiffs," she sniggled. "Put a sock in it, Shotza," I shouted, picking one of my dirty rolled-up socks up off the carpet and throwing it at her mouth. I turned back to Bunky. "Are you gonna do this or not?" I said. "Because if you're not, Birthday Barry's more than happy to take over." Bunky leaned back in my homework chair and laughed. "Oh, Perlice," he chuckled. "You couldn't do it if your nose depended on it. Your voices aren't funny in the slight rest. "Watch it, Bunky," I said. "Remember, I'm the brains of this operation." "Don't make me laugh, Barry," chuckled Bunky. "Anyone can think up a few stupid words. It's my funny voices that'll make people buy the app. I'll tell you what makes me larf, Bunky," I said. "What?" said Bunky. "Your real name," boomed. Bunky sat up straight, his eyes darting round the room. Ha, I don't know what you're talking about, Barry," he stuttered. "Let me remind you, then. I believe it begins with the letter N," I said, swizzling Bunky's chair round with my foot. "What you chatting about, Bozza?" said Sharonella, halfway through peeling a not bird sticker off my bedpost. "Bunky's name begins with a B, done it?" "Don't, Barry," said Nancy, who's the only other person apart from me and Bunky's mum who knows his real name. "Don't what?" said. "Tell everyone Bunky's real name?" Renard looked at Nancy, then at Bunky, then at me. "I really want to know Z's real name of Bunky's," he said. "Me too," cackled Sharonella, sticking the not bird sticker on her top. Bunky got up off my chair. "Seriously, Barry, if you do," he said. "If I do, what?" said. Bunky looked down at me the way a dog looks at its owner when they're being mean. "Don't worry, I'm not going to tell everyone your real name," I said. And then I shouted, "Nigel. Nigel v. Snooky Flumps." "Nigel?" screeched Sharonella, flomping back on my bed, cackling with laughter. "Need gel?" said Renard, looking confused. "Zissies when you ave hurt your knee and you need some gel to make it better, non?" "Nigel!" I shouted as Nigel, stomped out of my bedroom. I ran into the hallway and hung over the banister. "Come back, Nigel, I was only joking." The front door slammed and I walked back into my room. "I hope you're proud of yourself, Bye Barry," said Nancy, giving me her mum stare. "What?" I said. "It's his name. What's wrong with saying someone's name? Barry, called my mum up the stairs. Is everything all right, Snooky Flumps? I think Bunky's just left. Renard scratched his head. Snooky Flumps, he said. Louise sees Snooky Flumps when he is at home. Thinking in French, Sharonella snuggled her head into my pillow and smiled up at the ceiling. Looks like old Snooky Flumps has gone and ruined his chances at making £1 billion, she snort-led. Oh, why don't you go and do a great big smelly blow-off, Sharonella? I said. As if I needed Bunky, me Nigel, to make £1 billion. I can do funny voices just as well as he can. No, you can't, Barry, said Nancy, heading over to the door. I'm going to see if Bunky's all right. Hope you enjoy the rest of your birthday. She slumped down the stairs and shut the front door behind her. Nancy's left, too, shouted my mum from the kitchen. I turned to Sharonella and Renard and pictured the last few Schnauzinator 9000s on the shelf in Ficos. Anyone else think I can't do funny voices? I boomed, in my Hilarikiel's old granddad voice. Sharonella and Renard looked at each other, then at the carpet. Oh, just go home, I said, pointing at my door. I am not funny. Friends, who needs them? I said, flopping down on my bed. I peered out the window and spotted 2 birds perched on a branch, bickering over who had the longest beak or whatever it is birds argue about. My bedroom door creaked open and my mum poked her massive nose round it. Just thought LD say, Sharon and Bernard have left as well, she said. Everything all right, Barry? Fine, I mumbled, and my mum reversed her nose out of my room and clomped back down the stairs, her knees clicking on every step. I jumped up and went over to my desk. We'll see who's the funny one, I said, pressing record on my phone. I took a deep breath and combed my fingers through my hair. What did you do at school today, Barry? I said in my normal voice, just to warm myself up. Derm, dancer during Destians? I answered in my funniest blocked-up-nose voice. Ha ha. That's the hilariculous thing I've heard in the whole entire history of the universe, amen. I giggled, pressing rewind on my phone and then play. What did you do at school today, Barry? Droned a voice out of my phone's speakers. It didn't sound like me exactly. It was a bit dronier than usual. Derm, dancer during Destians? It droned again. Must be something wrong with the microphone, I muttered, giving the phone a tap on the table and pressing record. Barry, how was maths today? Asked in my normal voice. Ooh, Yawnsville times rubbish, dear. Divided by unkeelness, Warble replied. Pressed rewind then play. Barry, how was maths today? Droned my voice. Ooh, Yawnsville times rubbish, dear. Divided by unkeelness. Oh, I said, getting up from my desk and walking back to my bed. I sat down on the edge of it and sighed. No wonder my ex-friends didn't laugh at my funny voices, I mumbled. They're not funny in the slightest. Chat to Wolf. I flumped back on my bed and grabbed How to Be a Genius Like Me off the side table. I opened it up and slotted it over my face like a book-shaped Schnauzinator 9000. At least I'm still a child genius, I said, thinking how tiny Bunky's brain was. Who needs funny voices when you're a billionaire inventor, anyway? You okay, Snooky Flumps? Called my mum up the stairs for the 8 trillionth time. Dinner in 5 minutes. Yes, I'm fine, I droned in my boring, unfunny voice. But I wasn't fine at all. I was completely lonely. All on my birthday own with nobody to talk to, grumbled. What a loseroid. And just as I was saying the word loseroid, the book slipped off my face. It dunked onto my bed and slammed shut. Stupid rectangular cuboid, I said, picking it back up and glancing at the back cover. There was a photo of Wolf Tizzler next to the barcode at the bottom, with a speech bubble popping out of his grinning mouth. "Chat to Wolf," said the words inside the speech bubble. Underneath the photo was the link for Wolf's website, www.wolftizzler.com. I hummed, pulling my phone out of my pocket and tapping the website into it. Clicked on the Chat to Wolf button and a rectangle-shaped box appeared. "Please enter your login details," said the words inside it. I made my username BarryWinner and my password BarryIsTheculist. A little green bubble popped up and I typed hello into it. Chat to Sunil. The words "Hello BarryWinner" appeared inside a little gray bubble, just underneath my green one. I couldn't believe my unloserness. I was actually talking to the real-life Wolf Tizzler. Is that really the real-life Wolf Tizzler? I typed, even though knew it was. "My name is Sunil. I will be your customer liaison officer for this session," said the words that appeared in the little gray bubble. "Oh," I said out loud. "Oh," I wrote into my bubble. "What can I help you with today, BarryWinner?" typed Sunil. "I suppose just wanted to talk to another inventor," typed. "I'm a child genius like Wolf Tizzler, you see. Sometimes it can be a bit lonely." "Nice to meet you, fellow child genius," typed Sunil. "Do you have any advice for me?" I typed. "I'm trying to make £1 billion so I can buy a Schnauzinator 9000. My baby brother weed in my one." Sunil's bubble stayed empty for a bit. "Sorry to hear that, BarryWinner. My advice is to focus on your goal. Stay true to your desires and work hard to make them real." I scratched my bum, which isn't an easy thing to do when you're already sitting on it. "That sounds a bit boring," typed. Mr. Tizzler believes that only boring people get bored, typed Sunil. "Oh," I said out loud. "But I get bored all the time," I typed. The only time I wasn't completely bored was when I was with my friends, actually. "I think I might have been a bit horrible to my best friend Bunky," I typed into my little green bubble. "His real name's Nigel, and he doesn't like anyone knowing it, but I told Sharonella and Renard anyway. 'Cause they thought he could do funnier voices than me." Sunil's bubble stayed empty for a bit again. "No offense, BarryWinner, but our algorithm is indicating that the probability of your being a child genius is -17%. I don't even know what you are talking about," I typed. "My advice to you," typed Sunil, "is to make friends with your friend." I thought of Bunky, sitting somewhere all upset that everyone knew his name was Nigel. Then thought of him doing his old granny voice, and I sniggled to myself. Is that what Wolf would do? I typed. "Wolf Tizzler doesn't have time for things like friends," typed Sunil. I peered back out the window at the two little birds. They'd stopped bickering and were tearing a worm in half, sharing it for dinner. "'Kay, bye-bye," typed, stuffing my phone into my pocket and heading off to find Bunky. Not my favorite. "Nancy's back, Snooky Flumps," cried my mum as I started donking down the stairs. "What in the name of Schnauzville are you doing here?" I said. "Bunky's missing," cried Nancy. "I went looking for him but couldn't find him anywhere. His mom says he didn't come home for dinner." "Oh my unkeelness," I said, pulling at the neck of my polo neck jumper. "It's all hiot ass where should be," told them my mum poked her nose round the kitchen door. "You staying for Barry's birthday dinner, Nancy?" she smiled. "It's his favorite fish fingers, chips and peas." I put my hands on my mum's shoulders and stared into her eyes, getting ready to tell her fish fingers weren't my favorite anymore. "Mumsy Wumsy," I hate to break this to you, but... But what, Barry? Said my mum, starting to look worried, and changed my mind. Back in a birthday SEC. I cried, running out the door. Lost Bunky. Where could he be? Said Nancy as we strolled down my road, me in the lead because it was my birthday. I turned the corner at the top and headed in the direction of Mogden High Street. I don't know, but we're gonna find out. A lamp-post was growing out of the pavement like a leafless concrete tree. On it was stuck one of those lost dog posters we'd spotted earlier. Nancy, you still got that pen? I said, clicking my fingers and holding out my hand. Nancy fished around in her pocket and found pen, dropping it into my voices. I said, but I can still come up with genius ideas. I crossed out the word dog on the poster and wrote Bunky above it in capitals. Then I scribbled over the dog's ears and drew Bunky's 3 tufts of hair above its eyes. There! I said, standing back. The photo didn't look anything like Bunky. Not that it mattered, because I'd just spotted a fan-like heel silhouette out of the corner of my eye. Too many Franklicinos. What is it, Barry? Said Nancy, following me across the road to Cafe. Inside it was completely dark apart from one small light in the back corner. The closed sign was hanging on the door and I squid-gagged my face up to the window, peering through. Why didn't I think of it before? I cried. Not that LD been looking for all that long. Of course he'd come here. I banged on the door and Herman wandered over, unlocking it and letting me and Nancy in. He's in a bad way, he said, leading us through to the back. I tried to find out what was wrong but he wouldn't tell me. I think it's got something to do with somebody called Nigel. Bunky was slumped over Darren's table, empty Franklicino cups dotted around all over it. Too many. Franklicinos, he warbled. How many of those things has he had? Said Nancy, lifting Bunky's head off the table and leaning him back in his chair. Bunky, are you all right? She said, and he did a Franklicino burp right into her face. Bunky? Who's Bunky? He whimpered, beginning to sob. I hate to break it to you, Nance, but Bunky's dead. Don't you ever say that. I boomed, swiping the Franklicino cups off the table, and they crashed onto the floor. I think I was overdoing it a bit. Not that it mattered because it was my birthday. Hey! Watch the crockery, man, cried Herman, wandering off to get a dustpan and brush or whatever. Pulled the spare chair out and sat down opposite Bunky. I'm sorry, Bunky, I said, reaching over to hold his hand. Which was weird. I don't think I've ever held Bunky's hand before. Bunky wriggled his hand out of mine and stared at me through his tears. It's too late for sorry, he mumbled. Everyone knows my name is Nigel. Not everyone, I said, trying to make my voice sound undrony. Only Shotza and Renard, and they won't tell anyone. It went quiet for a bit while we all tried to imagine Sharonella not telling anyone that Bunky's real name was Nigel on Monday morning at school. Okay, Shotza might be a problem, said. But I'll deal with her. Bunky grabbed a napkin from the dispenser and wiped his eyes, just as Herman reappeared carrying a brand new Zoomy broom. You seen this thing in action? He smiled, sweeping up the plastic Franklicino cups. I glimpsed over at Bunky and did half a smirk. Stupid Wolf Tizzler, he snuffled, blowing his nose and smirking the other half back. I still haven't forgiven you, you know, he said. Oh come on, Bunky, I said. It's not like Nigel is even name. You wanna try Barry Loser out for size? Herman stopped sweeping and looked at Bunky. Your real name's Nigel? He smiled, and Nancy stomped on his foot. That's between you and that lamp post outside, she said. Bunky did a little chuckle and looked at my polo neck. I've got an idea for how you can at the baka, he said. I'll pull did cling. Monday morning. It was Monday morning and me, Bunky and Nancy were strolling through the gates of Mobden School. Sharonella wandered over to us with Renard, a ginormous smile on her face. Morning Barry, morning Nancy, morning. Bunky. She chuckled. Thanks, Shatsa, I said, rattling a 10p out of my piggy bank and handing it over to her for not saying Nigel. How long the jing go on for? If you don, let's just say it'll be a while before you're a billion dyer, she cackled, dropping the coin into her pocket. I thought back to my birthday and shook my head. Oh, I gave up on that idea days ago, said. It was way too much trouble. But what about C Schnazenator 9000, Barry? Said Renard. Ow, are you gonna afford ET now? Fico's sold out anyway, I said. The last one went on Sunday afternoon. I am so sorry, Barry, said Sharonella, leaning forward to give me a hug which Ella Meaty wriggled out of. Oh, I'm completely over it, I said, looking round at them all. Who needs a Schnazenator 9000 when LVE got friends like you? Really? Said Nancy. Plus my mom and dad said they'd buy me one for Christmas, smiled. What about that terrible little brother of yours, Barry? Said Renard. Ave you forgiven I'm yet? Yeah, I said. Desmond can't help it if he's a bit of a loser sometimes. Sharonella pointed at my yellow hoodie. Nice yellow hoodie, she said. Not that I was the one wearing it, Bunky was. Ooh, thank you, dear, warbled Bunky in his old granny voice. It's mine all week payback for young Barry here being such a naughty boy. Nancy did a sniggle. And see your polo necks had a little adventure too, Barry, she said, pointing at my white jumper, which wasn't white anymore, it was pink. Yeah, I said, pulling at the neck of it. I threw it in the laundry with my mum's dressing gown by accident. Turns out you're not supposed to mix red and white clothes together in the washing machine. Ooh la la, how do you not know Z's, Barry? Chuckled Renard. E.T. appears in every children's TV show I'd agree ever seen, non? Bunky ruffled my hair like he was my dad. Pink suits you, Baza, he laughed. It brings out the insides of your eyelids. Just then Anton Mildew from our class ran past. Darren's here, he cried. He's got a Schnazenator 9000. Huh? I said, looking up. And that was when I noticed something unbelievable. Super slug. Darren Darrenovsky was in the middle of the playground, a ginormous queue of kittywinkles snaking off in front of him like a caterpillar. Slotted onto his piggy-shaped head was a Schnazenator 9000 with the visor flipped up. How'd Darren afford a Schnazenator 9000? Gasped Bunky as future Ratboy zoomed my eyes in on the queue. All the kids were holding 10p coins in their hands. Next to Darren sat a humongoloid pyramid of tiny black cardboard packages. They were all about the size of a lipstick box and had the word Super Slug scribbled on the side of them in red capital letters. There was a yellow sticker on the lid of each box with the words 10p only written on it. Our slugs, that's how, cried, stomping over to him. Oi Dotsa, you've got some explaining to do. Oh I have El, loser, snuffled Darren, taking 10p off the freckly-faced boy at the front of the queue and handing him a super slug box. Don't act all clever with me, young man, said. I've seen your little slug boxes. You think you can buy them off me for 2p each and sell them for 10? I don't think I can, said Darren. I know it! Nancy tapped the freckly-faced boy on his shoulder. Excuse me, can I have a look at that, please? She said, and the boy thought for a second then shrugged and handed it over. If you've done anything to hurt those poor slugs, said Nancy, staring at Darren. She opened the lid and peered into the box. Inside, a slug was munching happily on a bit of lettuce. "See, no violence," burped Darren. "Like said, that's not my style." "How in the unkeelness did you get people to pay 10p for them?" said Bunky. "They're just boring old slugs." "Page 19, said Darren, pointing to the Wolf Tizzler book poking out of his rucksack. "It's all in the packaging." Nancy handed the box back to the boy and he peered into it, doing a face like he just wasted 10p. Renard stroked his chin and glanced down the queue at all the kittywinkles holding their lops. "But how did you sell enough of these slug thingies to buy on Schnazenator 9000? He said. "This gaming helmet, is really, really expensive, non?" Darren cackled to himself. "Don't be stupid, Bernard," he said. "I didn't buy it with my slug money." "So how did you buy it then, Daz?" said Sharonella. "I found that lost dog that's been on all the lamp posts," he giggled. Barely recognized him at first, he was all black from dirt and stuff. "Black?" I said, remembering the little black dog that'd weed up against the moody sunglasses man's lamp post. "Yeah, I gave him a wash and called the phone number on the poster," grinned Darren. "Nice big juicy fat reward, just enough for a Schnazenator 9000. I watched the next kittywinkle in the queue as she handed Darren her money. Bunky tapped me on the shoulder. "Barry?" "Spoiler alert, that was that dog we saw." He cried. But I just ignored him because I was too busy coming up with one of my brilliant and amazekiel ideas. One last buy plan. Darren took the coin off the girl and held it up to his nostrils. I love the smell of a lop in the morning," he snarfled, handing her a super slug. Said, giving my piggy bank a little rattle and looking round at my birthday gang. "Anyone thinking what I'm thinking?" "What you thinking, Baza?" said Sharonella. "Yeah, Barry, what's your brilliant and amazekiel idea this time?" said Bunky, peering into my earhole. I tapped Darren on the shoulder. "What you want, loser?" he burped. "How much for a go on your Schnazenator 9000, said, and he scratched his bum. "The SHNOZINATOR 9000 is not for sale," he said, stroking it with the same hand he just scratched his bum with. "Nice try, Baza," said Sharonella, patting me on the back, but wasn't finished yet. I whipped Darren's copy of How to Be a Genius Like Me out of his rucksack and flipped it open to page 59. "Everything has a price," I said, reading out loud. Darren smiled and peered at the piggy bank tucked under my arm. "How much you got in that thing?" he said. I held the piggy bank up in front of his face and gave it a rattle. "Ooh, enough for at least 5 goes, I reckon." Bunky started counting how many of us there were in the birthday gang. "Barry, Nancy, Shotza and Renard, that's 4. "So why do you want 5 goes, Barry?" "Hello?" said Sharonella, knocking on Bunky's forehead. "Anyone home?" "Oh yeah, and me," giggled Bunky. Darren snatched the piggy bank with his left hand and rattled it again. "Ooh, that does sound lovely," he drooled. Gordon Smugly from my class was the next person in the queue. "Are you two going to stand around pretending to be Wolf Tizzler all day?" he sneered. "Some of us have got super slugs to buy." Darren lifted the Schnazenator 9000 off his head with his right hand and weighted up against the piggy bank. "Come on!" cried a kittywinkle from the back of the queue, and Darren smiled. "Well?" I said, putting my arms round the birthday gang, and we all took a deep breath. "Looks like you've got yourself a deal, loser," said Darren, handing me the Schnazenator 9000. The end and adder. Apart from the next page.